So, Chris Christie in a world of trouble. Now, you've heard about, of course, Bridgegate, where he closed down the George Washington Bridge. Oh, I'm sorry, he didn't know about it. Just his closest aides closed it down, and including former college classmates that he'd appointed to the Port Authority. But what would Chris Christie know about that? Okay, let's put that aside for 1 second in determining whether he knew or not. Here's what might help in that decision making. Up until last week, Chris Christie was still claiming that it was a traffic study that had led to the lane closures. Okay, now it would take approximately half an hour to look to see if there was such a traffic study. For weeks and weeks, he said, oh no, that was a traffic study, I don't know what you're talking about. It turns out the head of the Port Authority said, there is no traffic study, he's been saying it all along. There is no traffic study relating to the George Washington Bridge. And Chris Christie knew that. And he still said, to me, oh, no, this is a Democratic plot. I didn't know anything about it. Oh, now he turns around. And why did he turn around? He turned around because the records were subpoenaed. And last week we found out for a fact that it was his appointees who had said in emails, shut it down for political retribution. So if you're naive enough to think that he didn't know about it, you're crazy, man. You don't know a thing about politics. Now, if you're unsure, I've got more evidence for you because he's got more scandals. Now, it turns out he might have done this to several mayors, political retribution. So, Jersey City Mayor Steve Fulop might have also suffered this kind of retribution. Wall Street Journal writes about it. They say Mr. Fulop decided against endorsing the governor. Within an hour of relaying his decision, the mayor said meetings with several state commissioners were canceled. Within hours. I mean, come on, are you really stupid enough to think that that was a coincidence? And they're doing this to several different mayors, but golly gee, Chris Christie had no idea. Oh, poor Chris. The Wall Street Journal continues. Since then, referring to the mayor of Jersey City, he said nearly every single meeting we have requested with state commissioners with regard to proactive Jersey City issues has been unfortunately rejected over the last 6 months, along with countless requests we made to the port authorities of New York and New Jersey. A bi-state agency Mr. Christie jointly controls with New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. By the way, that's also the same agency that did the lane closures on the bridge. In fact, we have government officials, Christie officials, who had talked about giving radio silence to the Fort Lee mayor on the George Washington Bridge closings. And this is what they said also in those emails that we found out after the subpoenas. Quote, his name, referring to the Fort Lee mayor, comes right after Mayor Fulop. Meaning, these are the guys we're going to get. We're going to get Mayor Fulop first, and then we're going to get the Fort Lee mayor. Could Chris Christie know about this effort to do retribution against every single mayor that didn't endorse him? Well, golly gee, no, of course, he's massively incompetent. He has no idea what's going on in his own administration. In fact, he did a 2-hour press conference where he basically said, me know what's happening under my own watch? No, I declare that I... So now, that's not the only mayors that are involved here. Apparently, Mayor of Hoboken, Dawn Zimmer, is also involved. In fact, she was being interviewed on WNYC. I want to have you listen to that interview to give you a sense of what kind of retribution she had.
Hoboken Mayor Dawn Zimmer says she had a face-to-face visit with Governor Christie in the spring when he asked her to endorse him for re-election. She told him she would be remaining neutral.
He was disappointed. But I wouldn't say that he was angry. I mean, he was disappointed and, said that he would keep asking. And, and I said, well, we can keep the conversation going, but, I don't expect to be changing my position. And I didn't.
A few months later, she had applied for a hazard mitigation grant to protect Hoboken from flooding. During Sandy, 80% of the city was underwater. Zimmer says she asked the state for $100 million. She got $300,000, a fraction of 1%.
It was a lot less, and I was extremely disappointed. And at the time, I was angry because I felt like the focus was on the shore.
Now, she says she can't help but wonder if her decision not to endorse Christie played a role.
With anything with 20/20 hindsight, I mean, in the context that we're in right now, you can always look back and say, like, okay, it was a retribution, but so I think probably all mayors are reflecting right now and thinking about it. But, I I really hope that that's not the case.
Look, if Hoboken didn't get the money and it was mainly because it was going to the Jersey Shore, we saw what happened to the Jersey Shore. You might think that's understandable, but I want to point out two critical facts from that. Number one, 80% of Hoboken was underwater. I think they needed some help, right? Now, the second critical fact is they requested $100 million. Now, look, that might be a lot of money, and they got billions of dollars for that aid. Remember how Barack Obama helped Chris Christie, and then the Republicans were so mad at Chris Christie for hugging him before the election, et cetera, right? So it's not like they didn't have the money, but you might say that's a lot of money. But then for a major city in New Jersey that was 80% underwater, to get just $300,000 in aid, that's outrageous, man. And again, if it was just one city and one case, you might say, hey, it's a coincidence. 3 different cities, and all of a sudden, every single one of them is facing issues and gets none of their requests answered. That's beyond the bounds of reason. If you think that Chris Christie isn't involved in knowing all of those major decisions, you don't know a thing about politics. And by the way, again, in the one case you got traffic jams, you might think, oh, well, so what, haha, traffic jams. But people, including a 91-year-old grandmother, apparently died while waiting for emergency help. And you could kind of anticipate that might affect people's lives. And in fact, the guy at the Port Authority that was working for Chris Christie that's involved in this scandal now did expect that. And he writes in the emails, well, hey, Fort Lee's mayor didn't complain about dangerous situations, so too bad. We're not going to give him what he wants, okay? And now in the case of Hoboken, if one of your major cities is underwater and because you're a political hack, you won't help them, your own citizens, that's pathetic. Okay, but this is not the only scandal. So there's now a state investigation into that, and the guy leading it saying it could possibly lead to impeachment. But there's also a federal investigation of Chris Christie. Why? Again, that relief money. Well, it turns out that they could have gone with a much less expensive option for doing tourism ads for New Jersey to get people to come back to New Jersey after the devastation there. But they went with a more expensive option. Why? Because in that package, they included ads that included Chris Christie. In fact, here's that ad. Watch.
It's in our blood, our DNA. It's who we are, we're here to stay. 'Cause we're stronger than the storm.
The Jersey Shore is open.
The word is spreading.
Because we're stronger than the storm.
You bet we are.
Oh, God, Chris Christie's so strong. I meant New Jersey. Yeah, sure, right. Now, when did he run that? Oh, well, look at that, right before his election. And where did he run it? I mean, well, it's tourism, so it's probably outside of the New Jersey area. Not exactly. He ran it in the New York and Philadelphia TV markets that absolutely positively cover New Jersey, almost all of New Jersey. Right before his reelection. What a wild coincidence. Interesting. And by the way, he also ran it in New York, Baltimore, Washington, and Pennsylvania, places that might be relevant if he decides to run for president in 2016. Well, it probably didn't cost the taxpayers that much, right? Well, the other ad would have cost $2.5 million. The one that featured Chris Christie cost $4.7 million. So that's another $2 million. But these guys are fiscally conservative, right? Turns out not so much when it comes to them. So if you think Chris Christie is just an aw shucks innocent politician just caught up in all this and can't believe he's just shocked that there would be political retribution going on in this administration. Like I said last week, I got a bridge in Fort Lee to sell you. Okay, you're crazy. He knew all about it, and I think he's in a world of trouble.